G'day, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining. My name's Mick Mayo. I'm your host, and this is episode 4. Alright, we're going to take a good look at the missing planes, in particular MH370. But that's a little later in the program. First off, we're going to do a bit of news, so we'll get straight into that. So we've got some more war games. You'll notice we've got the site up there on the screen, so we'll go through the stories from now on as we sort of bring them to you. Check out the website www.netGAZZETTE.com. We've got heaps of stuff there, and we've done a lot of work on it. So I think there should be something there for everybody. All right, more war games. The Royal Australian Navy has marked a monumental watershed moment in its military relationship with India, as 2 frigates and a submarine docked yesterday at the East Indian port of, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, for the first bilateral exercise between the Indian Ocean's region's most powerful naval fleets. We definitely need to be keeping our eye on this one, guys. Royal Australian Navy Rear Admiral Jonathan Mead, a former Defence Attaché to India and a commanding officer for this month's Oz-Index War, so they're calling it the Oz-Index War Games, said the 10-day exercise was an essential first step in building the ability to work together. For militaries to be able to operate together, they first of all need to understand the tactical and training procedures, communication systems of the other participants. You need to do all the work, go out to sea and understand where they turn left instead of right, so you don't collide. Well, you want to hope that they're a little past that. So yeah, it took 16 years for the 2 countries to fully put behind them the fallout that occurred in 1998 after nuclear tests were conducted in the Pacific, and Australia withdrew all their military personnel. The agreement reflects a growing regional alliance of democracies in the Indian Ocean committed to maintaining freedom of navigation. This has got a lot to do with China, guys. So actually, just as we were starting the recording, I picked up another piece here, so I'll just go a little bit of this. As part of a growing strategic relationship to counter China's increased activity in the Indian Ocean, India and Australia will focus on anti-submarine warfare in their first ever joint naval exercise. The Indian Navy and Royal Australian Navy are gearing up for the first ever joint maritime exercise called Oz-Index. The war games, starting September 9/11, off India's, there's that port again, in the Bay of Bengal, will include exercises to protect a tanker from a hostile attack submarine. The drills, first discussed a decade ago, come as global powers vie for greater influence. The Indian Ocean sea lanes account for almost half of the world's container trade, including 80% of China's oil imports. You wonder why they're not very happy. We just can't help it, can we? It's got to go out there and try and get a bloody nose. There's the potential for increased security tensions in the Indian Ocean, said Captain Sheldon Williams, Defence Advisor at the Australian High Commission in New Delhi. We sit right in the confluence of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. We have a significant responsibility for its security. That's how we're looking at it now. We don't own the ocean. We've got a right to protect our borders, fair enough. We're wandering around playing policemen. more American bullshit that's infected the ruling class of this country. Earlier, inclusion of Japan and Australia in the Indo-US Annual Maritime Exercises, Malabar, in the Bay of Bengal in 2007 had rattled China. That was then. This is now. World War III could be just around the corner. All it takes is a mistake here. There's big problems. Most alarming for India, though, has been China's deployment of submarines near its shores. Yeah, we'll keep our eye on that one. As I say, we've got lots of info on the site about it. Please jump over there and check some of it out. Alright, well that one's carried on a little longer than I intended. But that's okay. I'll just whip through to the next story. So we've got a police insider slams proposed metadata laws. The government has been trying to push the ability to keep our metadata for 2 years, claiming it's necessary for national security. They love throwing that one around. Critics argue that this would be a massive privacy breach, but the government believes it's necessary to protect Australia from the camel riding Hajis with box cutters, I assume. More of the concern surrounds people's privacy, particularly with the 2 years worth of data being stored in multiple servers, with some residing in Asia. Even Telstra has labelled the storage of the data as a honeypot for hackers. But how do the people that are actually responsible for using it? Sorry guys, I got ahead of myself there. Alright, we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, sorry about that. But how do people that actually are responsible for using and acting upon information found within the metadata feel about the problem? Speaking on Radio National's Download This Show, one police insider revealed the flaws in the proposed system. The insider, whose identity has not been revealed, has worked for the police dealing with metadata for years. There are only 3 justifiable reasons for accessing metadata. A, if someone's life is being threatened. B, for the protection of government income. C, and for an investigation of a crime punishable with at least 2 years in prison. However, crimes punishable by 2 years in prison can be things as simple as graffiti, meaning that more often than not, those investigating a criminal case, regardless of the case, will actually have access to the metadata. I mean, these laws have been in place for quite a while now to allow police and other investigators to access the data. This really just extends that power and mandates or forces the telcos to store the data for a period of up to 2 years. Obviously the telcos are concerned with the cost and the implementation of such a system, given that it's the police who require it and the government that wants it. I don't understand why the telcos are being lumped with the bill, because I can tell you what will happen. Any expense that they incur will be passed on to us, the customer, as usual. But what do you do? All right. I think we'll leave the news there, just for the moment. I've got a bit of a Google tour sorted out there, and then we might get into the beginning of the MH370 article. All right. Once again, thank you for joining the channel. Please subscribe. You can catch up with us on all the social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and of course YouTube. We hope you visit the website www.netgazette.com. Please register and join in on the conversations, and give us your feedback on the stories as well. Alrighty, here we go.
If this video disgusts you, it should. It happens daily in Iraq. The rules of engagement in Iraq are a joke. This needs to end, and we need to bring the soldiers home now.
Keep shoot. Keep shoot.
There's some remarkably disturbing footage out today of a U.S. helicopter engaging with some folks in Baghdad in 2007. Do you think that sort of activity on its face appears to have been appropriate?
Obviously, it is very graphic in nature, and it's and extremely tragic.
Once you get on, just open them up.
Our military will take every precaution necessary to ensure the safety and security of civilians, and particularly those that report in those dangerous places on behalf of news organizations.
Free to engage over. Alright, we'll be engaging. Roger, go ahead. Goddamn those speeds coming around. Just fucking, once you get on, just open them up. You're clear. Alright, firing.
Line here, with the state line, let me know when you gather.
Or shoot. Light them all up.
202 traffic, 260s.
Come on, fire.
Hey, Roger.
And the rules of engagement in 2007, when this happened, was if you feel threatened by anybody, you're able to engage that person. Many soldiers felt threatened just by the fact that you were looking at them. So they fired their weapons at anybody who was looking at them, because I felt threatened. We were told that if we were to fire our weapons at people and we were to be investigated, officers would take care of you. We were given orders for 360-degree rotational fire whenever we were hit with an IED. We were told by our battalion commander to kill every motherfucker on the street. Many soldiers would not do that. We decided that we were going to shoot into the rooftop of buildings, because if you didn't fire, the NCOs in your platoon would make your life hell. This happens on a daily basis. I've watched it with Bradleys destroying vans full of children who were in the way when an IED went off. The destruction of the Iraqi people happens on a daily basis. People just going to the markets, people just going to work, children playing in their front yards. This is my experiences that day. That day started out much like many days in Iraq. We were woken up about 2:30 a.m. to prepare for a mission, one of many that seemed pointless. Our battalion commander called them Ranger Dominance, but many of the soldiers, such as myself, dubbed them Ranger Dumbass. These missions consisted of 2 companies walking through New Baghdad, unprotected from snipers and IEDs. We dreaded them and despised our battalion commander because of them. That morning, we gathered at the gate of the Fabra Samaya, preparing for our death march into town. It was now about 4 a.m. in the morning when we heard the sirens for incoming. Boom. First one, not very far away from us. Boom, this one a little bit closer. We were now used to this by now, and although afraid inside, we knew that if we ran for cover, we'd look like cowards in the eyes of some of our NCOs. So the majority of us just stood there, praying that a mortar wouldn't land on us. The bravado of trying to look hard was what we lived by. We were 1st Infantry, the toast of the Army, the favorite son. We were the 216 Rangers. We prided ourselves on being tougher than anyone else. But looking into the eyes of these 18 and 19-year-old kids, you could see the fear, the uncertainty. Finally, the mortar stopped. "They know we're coming," said one of the privates in my squad. I tried to reassure him that they didn't know we were coming that day. It was just a coincidence, although not believing my own statement myself. We began our march in the early morning hours. There was hardly anyone on the streets. It was quiet, almost peaceful. You could get caught up in the silence if you weren't so afraid of being shot in the throat or in the thigh by a sniper. Snipers usually went for these areas because they were unprotected, the throat for obvious reasons, and the thigh for your femoral artery. Many of us usually walked with the buttstock of our M4s close to our neck for an almost futile attempt at protecting ourselves. Our mission that day was to cordon off an area of New Baghdad and perform what is called knock-in searches, which basically consists of us knocking on the doors of homes, asking to search the home for militia-related materials, weapons, or bomb-making materials. Although it was more of a demand, and if they refused, it gave us proper cause to destroy the home by searching more vigorously. The hours passed of doing this, and we were finding absolutely nothing, getting extremely hot and agitated. Some of us began messing around taking pictures because there was nothing else to do. Finally, we were informed that we were closing up shop. I remember being thankful because it was over 110 degrees that day, and the hot water we were drinking was providing no relief. We started funneling into an alleyway to leave the area when some locals on rooftops above us started firing their AK-47s at us. We took cover along a wall and were returning fire. We could hear other fire coming from another platoon just a few blocks from us as well. On the net, we could hear that they were taking small arms as well as RPG fire.
See all those people standing down there? Step behind the mic. Stay firm. Have 5 to 6 individuals with AK-47s. Request permission to engage.
Roger that. We have no personnel east of our position, so you are free to engage over.
You're clear. All right, firing.
Line here. When stage line, let me know when you gather.
One shoot. Light them all up.
202 traffic, 260 is
Come on, fire.
Hey, Roger.
That's when I heard it. The very distinct fire of an Apache 30mm cannon. And again, over and over.
Keep shooting.
It was very close. "We need to move to that position now," came over the net.
All right, we just engaged all 8 individuals.
Myself and the team of soldiers I was with began running in the direction where we heard the Apache fire.
God damn it, Kyle. All right. I hit him by head. Got a bunch of bodies laying there. Oh, yeah, look at those dead bastards. Nice. Good shoot. Thank you.
I was not even close to prepared for the carnage that I was about to walk onto. I saw what appeared to have been 3 men on a corner.
Got that big pile of bodies to the right on the corner.
We got dismounted infantry and vehicles. Over.
It was an extreme shock to my system. They didn't look human. I know that they had to be at one time, but the destroyed carnage that I was looking at didn't appear to be. Then there was the smell. The smell was unlike anything I've smelled before. A mixture of feces, urine, blood, smoke, and something else indescribable. I saw an RPG next to one of the men and an AK-47.
We also have one individual appears to be wounded, trying to crawl away. He's getting up. If he has a weapon in his hand? All I gotta do is pick up a weapon. Come on, buddy. If we see a weapon, we're gonna engage. Now, Bushmaster, we have a van that's approaching and picking up the bodies. Where's that van at? Right down there by the body. Okay, yeah. Bushmaster, Crazy Horse, we have individuals going to the scene, looks like possibly picking up bodies and weapons. Let me engage.
Hey, we need to stop that so we can get down there.
Hey, shoot.
You see my location?
Roger. Break. Crazy Horse 1A, request permission to engage. I'm picking up the wounded. Yeah, we're trying to get permission to engage. Come on, let us shoot. A Bushmaster, Crazy Horse 1A. him. Bushmaster, Crazy Horse 1-8.
It's Bushmaster 7, go ahead.
Roger, we have a black SUV or bongo truck picking up the bodies. Request permission to engage.
Bushmaster 7, Roger. This is Bushmaster 7, Roger, engage.
1-8, engage. Clear. Come on. Clear. Clear. More engaged as well. The van's disabled. Go ahead and shoot it. Oh, left. Clear left. Oh yeah, look at that, right through the windshield. Alright, there was approximately 4 to 5 individuals in that truck, so I'm counting about 12 to 15.
Alright, bring the trucks in, cordon this area off.
Over 5-2 radio.
Yes, Viper, 5 to departing zone 208 for zone 4, we call frequency.
I just drove over a body. Yeah.
Viper 5-2, report free change zone 4.
Maybe it was a visual illusion, but it looked like it.
Oh, they're dead, so.
Van that was engaged. Looks like a kid. Over.
Crying. I hear crying. Not cries of pain, but that of a small child who had just woken up from a horrible nightmare.
Yeah, it looks like we got some slight movement from the van that was engaged. Looks like a kid. Over.
I saw that there was a minivan, and the cries appeared to be coming from it. Myself and another soldier, a 20-year-old private, walked up to the passenger side van and looked inside. The private that I was with reeled back, began to vomit, and quickly ran away. What I saw when I looked in the van was a small girl about 4 years old on the passenger side of the bench seat. She had a severe belly wound and was covered in glass.
Roger, we need a to evac this child. She's got a wound to the belly.
The glass was in her hair and also in her eyes. Next to her, half on the floorboard, with his head resting on the seat, was a boy about 7 years old. He wasn't moving, and from the severe wound to the right side of his head, my first thought was that he was dead. In the driver's seat was who I immediately concluded must have been these children's father by the way he was hunched over the children in a protective manner. There was no way that the father had survived. I immediately grabbed the little girl and screamed for a medic. The medic and myself went into a house behind the van. There was a local man hiding in fear in his kitchen of his home. I yelled out to him to help me. He stood up and quickly grabbed a bucket of water, which the medic and I used to clean the girl off. I pulled as much glass from the little girl's eyes as I could so that she can blink. The whole time thinking, fuck, what the fuck, these are babies.
Hey, I need to get the brass to drop ramps. I got a wounded girl. We need to take the rest of mile. Roger, I've got 11 Iraqi KIAs, 1 small child wounded, over.
Damn. Oh well. Oh, it's their fault for bringing their kids to a battle.
That's right.
See, my son was born May 31st, 2007. I had yet to see him. And I had a daughter who was barely older than this girl. The medic radioed in that the little girl needed to be evacuated because there was nothing else he can do here. I handed the child to the medic, who then ran the girl to a waiting Bradley armored vehicle. I walked back to the van. I don't know why, or what told me to go back to the van. There was just something making me go back to the van. I looked inside the van again. Did the boy just move? Holy shit, the boy just moved. I grabbed the boy from the van and held him against my chest. I was screaming at this point, the boy's alive, the boy's alive. I started running to the Bradley in hopes that it wasn't leaving. At this point, the boy looked up at me. Then his eyes rolled back, and my heart sunk. It's okay, I have you. It's going to be okay. Don't die, don't die. I squeezed him a little bit tighter. I put him into the Bradley as gently as I could.
Can you tell Battalion the 2 civilian children casualties are coming back to West Maya and the Bradley, over?
Roger, that's negative on evac and the 2 civilian kids to Rusty. They're going to have the IPs will take them to a local hospital, over.
What the fuck are you doing, McCord? It was my platoon leader. "Need to quit worrying about these fucking kids and pull security," he screamed. At the time, the only thing I can think of was, "Roger that, sir." I said immediately and went to the rooftop to pull security. While on the roof, one of the soldiers took a picture of me. I didn't realize that the blood of the children was all over the front of me. Later that day, when we returned to the FOB, Forward Operating Base, everyone pretty much ignored what had happened. I couldn't. I went to my room to try to clean the children's blood from my uniform, fighting back tears from what I had seen. My emotions were taking over. The very thing that the Army taught us not to do in war, I was doing. My humanity and love for the human race was overcoming everything they taught me. My mind was reeling, the thoughts controlling every ounce of me. It was then I decided I needed to go see a mental health counselor. I went to a staff sergeant who was in my line and asked to speak with him. When I told him my feelings and how I was unable to deal properly in the Army sense with what I had just witnessed, his response was, "You need to suck that shit up. Quit being a pussy and get the sand out of your vagina. If you go to mental health, there will be repercussions like being charged with malingering." I couldn't believe that needing to talk to somebody could constitute a crime in the Army. But like a good little soldier, I said "Roger that," and went back to my room to cope the only way I knew how, which was by watching as many movies and listening to as much music as I could to escape the reality of what I was. I became extremely angry. I yelled at everyone. I yelled and was angry at my soldiers, my family, the civilians back home, but mostly I was angry with myself. I hated myself for what I was a part of. There were many days in Iraq that I dreamed for an IED or a sniper to take me out and end the pain I was feeling. Ever since that day, I live with this. It's burned into my head. I don't need to watch the movie. I see it every day. I hear the cries of the children when I close my eyes. I smell the smells. When it's quiet, I see the carnage like a slideshow. I'm hoping one day I can sleep a full night without the memories coming back to haunt me. The innocence lost. My friends lost. Hopefully one day I won't be so angry. Hopefully one day I'll help others see that they're not alone in valuing life. Thank you.
We're able to do more and more things with this platform that are just phenomenal, that you wouldn't have even dreamed of before. A lot's going on when you're in battle. People are shooting at you, you're getting information from stimulation overload. So what you need now is a system that can evaluate all those various stimuli coming in, prioritize them. The Apache today can operate as a quarterback on a football field. They can take in many different kinds of information, but they're calling the play. We can control other unmanned air vehicles. We can control where they are. We can fly them from either station in the Apache. With the sensors the Apache carries today, we can see and spot the enemy anytime, day and night, and they don't even know we're there. They can't see us, they can't hear us. And you can transmit that information to the 19-year-old green suiter on the ground looking at his handheld device, so before he goes around the wall and there's a bad guy there, he knows there's a bad guy there. I have a son that's one of those soldiers on the ground. They can tell the tone and the sound of an Apache when it's in the area. And they've told stories that they know everything's going to be okay because the Apache is there. So now he won't even be able to hear the rotors. He'll just know that they're watching, because it could be an unmanned air vehicle watching, protecting him and covering he and his buddies. How cool is that?
Everybody always gives me that. Oh yeah, I work for Boeing. Oh, you work with planes. And then I tell them, well, it's directed energy that I work in. Oh, what's that? Well, I work with lasers. Well, everybody's eyes always open up. The U.S. Army's High Energy Laser Mobile Demonstrator. Its primary mission is to go after threats the Army is going to see, such as counter rockets, mortars, artillery. We're accurate enough we can destroy sensors on the UAV or unmanned aerial vehicle, or we can actually just go ahead and destroy the UAV. The key thing about directed energy that everybody has to understand, they're very, very precise things. So you're pinpointing very specific points on the target. You're targeting the tail of a mortar so that it flies off its trajectory. You're not affecting the whole target itself. Having a focus beam on a target is taking a magnifying glass and putting a piece of paper in front of it and trying to focus the sun's light so that you can burn a hole through it. Now let's take that piece of paper, fold it into a paper airplane. Try and keep a beam on and try and burn through it. That's what we're doing, and that's incredibly hard. How does a laser work? You have to put energy in. What's given off is light, photons coming off of actual material. And we take that light and put it through magnification, collimators, different types of lenses, so that we can shape the beam to what we want it to be. The key mission, you want to protect your troops on the ground.
Everything about space is hazardous. It's an extremely harsh environment. And yet here we have a laboratory where humans can thrive and they can do experiments and they can learn more about their environment and how to mitigate those dangers. The International Space Station, right now it's going through space at 17,500 miles an hour. It's surrounded by a vacuum so that if you got a hole in any of the modules, then you would lose all of your air pressure inside. When it's in the sun, it's at 160 degrees, and when it's cold, it's at minus 50 degrees. It gives us our first long-term access to space life. It's how do you live and operate in space. There's usually over 200 experiments that are on the International Space Station at any one time. Now we're at the very beginning of getting science results back and showing that it is worth that investment. What Boeing does for the International Space Station is we're the sustaining engineer. So we make sure that the International Space Station is functioning properly so that the astronauts can stay healthy and that they're not having to worry about maintenance or repairing different parts of the station. They can spend their time doing real science experiments. And if an experiment comes in the door to NASA and they would like to put it on the International Space Station, Boeing is very highly involved in making sure that it is safely integrated into the space station and can be used by the astronauts. We're working hard to streamline the processes to get experiments quickly up onto space station. One of the experiments showed that viruses react differently in space. When you get out of the gravity environment, they become much more deadly. What that did is it enabled the scientists on the ground to be able to determine ways to make them less deadly because that genetic marker is the same. And then they can develop vaccines. So they're looking at vaccines for things like salmonella, which affects hundreds and thousands of people across the world. They looked at the MERS, the flesh-eating bacteria virus, and if you can find effective ways to treat those things from things that you learn on the International Space Station, then that's a benefit for everyone. There has never been anything like the International Space Station. Well, I'm just really proud to be a part of the team that has built a capability that is unique in the history of the world. We've taken the best minds and we've built something that I think will really help humanity.
Bullshit.
This piece of wreckage is what's called a flaperon. It's used when you're slowing the aircraft down and for takeoff, but more importantly it's used when they want to roll the aircraft to the left or the right. This piece of wreckage is also showing signs of delamination, and that is consistent with a piece of composite structure, and the Boeing 777 flaperons are made of composite structure, unlike most other aircraft. So this is a very telltale sign that this is quite likely from a Boeing 777. When you look at the Indian Ocean current, which is anti-clockwise, and essentially you can draw a very nice anti-clockwise circle going away from the search area up the West Australian coast, southern Indonesia, and then down towards the Reunion Island. And oceanographers always said that the debris, if we found any, would be southern Indonesia or on the east coast of Africa or one of the islands. So quite likely this is from MH370. In aviation, every single part of an aeroplane, all the millions of pieces, have a serial number. You can track it back to the day it was manufactured. And so yes, there will be markings on that that'll tell Boeing, yes, it's from a 777, and yes, it's from MH370.
I think as long as the part number and the serial number can still be read, that's the big thing, because that'll help us understand if it's come from this aircraft or not. But yes, evidence will deteriorate with time. Luckily, with so much metal in the structure, it makes it a bit easier, but it might be a bit tricky getting those part numbers.
Malaysian 370, contact HME 120.9.
Yesterday's news was incredibly hard for the family members.
After 327 days and based on all available data, with the heaviest heart and deepest sorrow, that on behalf of the government of Malaysia, we officially declare all 239 of the passengers and crew on board MH370 are presumed to have lost their lives.
Delivery Malaysia 370, good morning.
Malaysian 370 standby and Malaysian 6 is cleared to Frankfurt via Agosa Alpha departure 6000 feet squawk 2106.
Cleared to Frankfurt, Agosa Alpha departure 6000 feet squawk 2106, Malaysian 6.
Malaysian 6 over the ground, good day. Malaysian 370 request level.
370, we are ready, requesting flight level 350 to Beijing.
Malaysian 370 is cleared to Beijing via Pibos Alpha departure 6000 feet squawk 2157.
Beijing, Pibos Alpha 6000 squawk 2157, Malaysian 370, thank you. Malaysian 370, good morning. 31, requesting push and start. Good morning, push back and start, approve runway 3 to right, exit via Sierra 4. Push back start, approve 3 to right, exit Sierra 4, TRP 239, Mike Romeo Oscar. Copy. Malaysian 370, request taxi. Good. Alright, Commercial Bravo. Malaysian 370, you are unreadable, say again. Malaysian 370, taxi to Reply Alpha 11, runway 3 to right via standard route, Commercial Bravo. Alpha 11, standard route, Commercial Bravo, Malaysian 370. Malaysian Express 6. Continue. Bravo, November 2, Foxtrot, Beach. Bravo, November 2 for 30, Asian Express 6121. Station. Alpha Alpha Hotel Zulu. Asian 6 contact tower, 8-8, good night. Tower 118.8, Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum. 670 tower. 118 Malaysia 370. Malaysia 370. Good morning, Mokta 10 to right. 10 Malaysia 370. 6 line up to Alpha 10. Yeah, line up to Alpha 10 Malaysia 6. 670 line up to Alpha 10. Malaysia 370. 370, 3 to right of takeoff. Nice. 3 to right of takeoff, Malaysia 370. Thank you, bye. Malaysian 370.
Malaysian 370, selamat pagi. Identified, climb flight level 180, cancel assign internet direct to Ikari.
Okay, level 180, direct Ikari, Malaysian 370.
370, contact lampu radar 13269.
The first comprehensive report into the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 has revealed that the battery of an underwater locator beacon had expired more than a year before the aircraft disappeared. It's exactly a year since the plane, which was on its way from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, went missing with 239 people on board. A huge search operation in the Indian Ocean has so far proved fruitless.
The sole objective of the investigation of an accident or incident shall be prevention of future accidents or incidents. It is not the purpose of this activity to apportion blame or liability.
The 584-page report sheds little light on modern aviation's biggest mystery, but one of its authors insists that could change in the future.
In the months ahead, The investigation team will need to analyze, to draw conclusions and safety recommendations based on the factual information that have been gathered. Steps taken will also include further validation of the factual information on emergence of new evidence.
Meanwhile, the families of those who vanished along with the plane are remembering their loved ones as they wait for answers.
MH370 changed our whole life, not only me, but for all the family members. We can't do anything every day, just thinking about the MH370, where the airplane is, where our loved ones is. And every day I can't do anything. I just visit website, go to our WeChat group, to searching the news, to meet medias, to have the conference with the searching teams. So we try our best to find our loved ones, to find the news where our loved ones is. And most of the family members, because of these things, become depressed, got sick, and most of our loved ones are the support of the families. They have no income. Their life getting difficult and more difficult. Even many of the family members, they can't pay the ticket to go to Beijing, to go to the support center. So the MH370, I can see that changed the whole life of our old family members. Most of our family members still believe their loved ones alive, and the airplane was hijacked in somewhere, or maybe hid by someone in somewhere, because nobody gave them evidence. The airplane is crashed into the South Indian Ocean Sea. And even most of us think about like this: if the airplane crashed into the ocean, there are many debris on the ocean. Why till now can't find any one piece of it? So they have reasons to believe that. And also, maybe they don't want to think other possibilities. They just want to think about this: our loved ones still alive. This only the reason support them to continue their life, to continue to fight with anybody who should take responsibility to these issues. So that's why we keep asking Malaysia Airlines, keep asking Boeing, Inmarsat to give us answer, to give us explanation.
Okay, welcome back. You're watching episode 4 of netGAZZETTE. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe on YouTube. Chase us down on all the social media sites: Twitter, YouTube, Google+. You can also find us on Flipboard also now. So we've started to publish our content there also. As I said in earlier episodes, we do publish quite a good deal of content to YouTube, but obviously there's a good deal more on the website, and obviously we use the social media streams more for interaction, I guess, and feedback, rather than actually posting any content to them. So thanks very much to all those that have viewed the pages. I hope some of you choose to choose to join, subscribe. I don't buy it much. Not anymore, I'm too old. Anyway, I want to, I guess I briefly want to apologise, or not so much apologise, but make clear why I presented the content, in particular the Apache content in the way that I did. It's a disturbing piece of footage. We all understand the fact that soldiers have a duty to carry out. It's one thing to carry out your duty, it's another thing to enjoy doing it. I think that's where soldiers need to draw the line. Hats off to that young man that came out and gave that speech. That's a gutsy thing to do. To come out and to strip yourself of honour and pride and deliver the truth like that, I respect that. Alright, what I want to say is this. We have to understand, it's us, the working class, you and me, not the lawyers and the doctors and the politicians, the fitters, the plumbers, the brickies, the labourers. We built the world, people, and we've handed it over. We've handed it over to a bunch of cowards, yellow-bellied, manipulative, lying cowards. Won't get yourself on too much of a roll. But it's us, the working class, that empower and give rise to the cowardly and frankly shameful conduct that we just witnessed, and we do it like this. If you vote, then by way of mandate, and you will have heard that word bandied around by our fearless leaders, who incidentally are flat out digging holes in the outback so they can hide their sorry asses from the mess that they've created. If you vote, then by way of mandate, you empower the ruling class to conduct such actions as we just witnessed. And in effect, by extension, you pull the trigger too. No man has the right to elevate another by means of election. We're a team, the human race. We don't need a ruling class. There are only 10 rules, and there is only one God to bind them all together. So how do we fix the mess that we're in? Well, that's an easy one for a change. Don't vote. I won't say the CV word. Make a choice. Exercise your right as a soul to do as you please. No vote, no elevated one, no election, no fearless leader, no vote, no fearless leader, no mandate. No mandate, no war. And the wheels won't fall off our society, lo and behold. Because it doesn't matter if the ruling class abandon us. They do nothing in any case. In case you haven't noticed. And remember this. The so-called terrorists, they don't have any boats. We went to them. They did not come to us. cutters v Apache, AK-47 versus 30mm cannon, open sights versus video telemetry. It amounts to a crime, and we all know who the criminals are. And I won't call it a war crime because it's not a war. Alright, enough said about that, I think, for the moment anyway. I'll touch back on that from time to time. Alright, now the YouTube seems to have clipped the end of episode 3 of the Port Arthur massacre, and in particular where Sergeant McCarthy talks. So, in the interest of giving the YouTube the benefit of the doubt, I've recut the video. This time just to the pertinent part, and there really is only one pertinent part of this story, and you're about to hear it. Pay attention. This is an old copper, a real copper, and I've looked at a lot of people and I've heard a lot of bullshit. And I know when I'm looking at somebody that's delivering it from the cuff, off the, you know, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. He has no vested interest in any of this. Merely to see that truth is found and that justice is at least attempted. So let's hear from Sergeant McCarthy. He's ruined his career over it and spent a good deal of his retirement that he should have been enjoying in a fishing boat with a fishing rod, going up against a combative Australian government and legal system. So if you're out there, Sarge, mate, I generally don't like coppers, but you're an exception, and I'm happy to throw me 2 bobs worth in and in support. Alrighty, let's go. Let's have a look at it, and I don't think I'll come back in after the end of it, guys. I think I'll wrap the show up there. There's 2 parts to it. There's 2 videos that I'll run, and then I'll catch all you guys hopefully tomorrow. I know the videos have been a little sporadic in delivery, but bear with me while we get everything set up and sort of a framework in place, or a set of procedures at least. So it's entirely my fault that each and every episode so far has been a train wreck. But hopefully you're enjoying it. Hopefully you're picking up something along the way. That's the intention. Not to come off as a smart ass or anything like that. I've always found that it doesn't matter who I've met or what walk of life they've come from. I've always found that there's something I've been able to take from each and every person, by way of wisdom, by way of wit, by way of character. Each of us is given a gift. Some of us are lucky enough to find it, some aren't. But everyone should be encouraged to try it. Alrighty, let's get cracking.
Themselves to begin with, that were orchestrated in order to get people's guns. So welcome to the program, and I really want to learn a bit more about this, because I'm not terribly well informed, I must say.
Right. It would be nice if you had been a little bit informed. You could have asked some rather relevant questions, or questions that would have been relevant to you. Port Arthur massacre. Well, for a start, Vinny, can you tell me which is the world capital for lone nut mass killings?
It's a good question. I don't know.
How about Melbourne?
Really?
Victoria, Australia. We've had 4 of them.
How interesting. How come it's not hyped up on the news and repeated over and over and over again?
I don't think the anti-gunners or the government will be greatly amused with that type of, how can you say it, thing going on in Australia. But that is the actual fact that we had the first lone nut gun massacre shooting on the 9th of August 1987 with Julian Knight at the Hoddle Street, which is Clifton Hill, the suburb of Melbourne. And Julian Knight survived. He was caught by 2 members of the Fitzroy Uniform Police, and he stated that he didn't know what he was doing. He thought he was shooting Martians, which simply means it is under a major psychosis. The next shooting took place in about December 1987 in the Queen Street Massacre, which is the Queen Street, the philatelic post office. Now, that particular building was a federal building with federal security in it. And the gunman, who apparently had never been there before, managed to get past the security. And he was going around ranting. And one of the rants he made that people heard and remembered was, how do they expect me to kill people with this gun, which was an M1 carbine, and to fit it in the bag he used to carry it to the this area. Somebody had cut a part of the butt and then the part of the barrel, which immediately stopped the M1 from being a semi-automatic, and it could only be hand-loaded, or with the action, and this particular firearm jammed more times than it actually fired. So that was the second one. Then we had the Abortion Street killings in East Melbourne in 2001, and then finally in 2003 we had the Monash University shooting. In both those last 2 incidents, some of the supposed sacrificial lambs actually jumped up and grabbed the gunman and stopped it. The real interesting thing with the Monash University shooting was when Associate Professor Brett Inder entered the room. The gunman said to him, "It was all I could do."
Now, Andrew, before you continue, by the way that you're recounting these instances and the details that you're recounting them and the way that you do, it would lead me to suspect that you have actually had a career where such a skill is necessary. Were you a police officer or something?
I was a member of the Victoria Police Force from 68 till 85. I retired in health in 1985 after running into some problems with a thing called corruption.
That'll do it.
Every time.
Every time. So can I ask you just about yourself personally before we actually continue on to talk about mass shootings and the Port Arthur massacre, some of your experiences and kind of who you are as a person so the audience can become familiar as well as myself?
Well, I joined the Victoria Police Force in 1968, the year after my eldest sister was murdered by a former boyfriend on the front yard of my parents' house in West Heidelberg. And, that had upset me greatly. He was later found in a creek area, a couple of miles away from home. He'd committed suicide. But that took place on a 24th birthday, and I was extremely upset that it had happened, and that previous actions by the police had failed to take the gun off at this deranged person, and he was able to kill my sister. So I'm not a person particularly fond of firearms, but I'm not a person against firearms. Firearms are a tool, an implement. They never jump up and shoot people. It's somebody's got to pull the trigger. And so when the Port Arthur massacre finally came round, and I can remember listening to the radio on the car when it was first announced, about a gunman going mad, and I turned the radio off in disgust because I knew it was going to be psyched up. Later on, I came round to study it. I got a copy of the court transcript where Martin Bryant was sentenced. Martin Bryant was never put on trial, and he should have been. Well, the day of his arrest, one of the members of the Coalition for Gun Control stated quite emphatically that Martin Bryant had a mental condition, which simply meant that he was suffering from schizophrenia. And if you're suffering from schizophrenia, there had to be a trial. So another anti-gunner came along, Professor Paul Mullen, who said, no, he didn't. He only had a personality disorder. He's quite perfectly, competent to be tried. But there was never a trial. Martin Bryant, on the 30th of September, when he was facing his first hearing, pleaded not guilty to all charges. And his solicitor, Lieutenant Colonel David Gunson, the head of the legal bar in Hobart, immediately stood aside, and the solicitor, John Avery, took over. Now, John Avery also represented Carleen Bryant, Martin Bryant's mother, and the gun dealer, Terry Hill. Now, it's extremely interesting with the gun dealer because shortly before Avery took over for Bryant, Avery had written to Terry Hill asking him to give evidence that he had sold the murder weapons to Martin Bryant, which was a lie. And Terry Hill declined to tell this particular lie, and so the police ended up raiding his shop and closed his business down, collected all his books. So, these are just little aspects of what's happened. You start reading the sentencing document, and you're absolutely amazed. You then start reading the witness statements, and they are absolutely astounding. The first thing you find out is that according to the police documents, when David and Sally Martin were killed at between 10:30 and 12 o'clock, that Martin Bryant was 58 kilometres away drinking coffee, as per the witness statement. You've got witnesses stating that Martin Bryant arrived at the Seascape Cottage, which was the first and the final scenes, at 12:30. Again, sort of thing, the shootings were heard by other witnesses from Seascape Cottage from 10:40 a.m. And that's from 4 different witnesses. So you've got major problems with the police evidence, and you can understand why the whole Tasmanian government, the Australian federal government, all required Martin Bryant to plead guilty, which John Avery was finally able to coerce Martin Bryant to do so simply by getting Martin Bryant's mother to go in and tell Martin if he didn't plead guilty, then neither she nor Martin's sister would ever be able to visit him at Brisbane Prison. That's really not a legalist assisting a client.
It sounds like somebody didn't want him to talk. We'll have contact with anybody that might try and, I don't know, spread out things.
Nobody's permitted to speak to Martin Bryant. That was made perfectly clear in an article by Gary Linnell in the Bulletin in about 1998.
Oh, come on. Even Charles Manson was allowed to have people talk to him, and he was a knowing mass murderer.
No, well, Martin Bryant, his mother got one visit to him, and she asked him if he'd actually did these things at Port Arthur, and he said it must have been a police setup. And after that, he became too agitated, and she was frightened to ask him anything further.
Define police setup. What evidence do we have that there was police present? Was there any reports of multiple shooters, things of that nature?
there were reports of multiple shooters. I've named the main shooter at Seascape Cottage to be Sergeant Michael Charles Dyson of the Tasmania Police Special Operations Group. The shooter at the Port Arthur Historic Site as being Benjamin Overbeek. And I stated that quite emphatically, and nobody's sued me as yet.
What are those gentlemen's background? Do they have military training or just police training?
The shooter at the Port Arthur Historic Site was a 20-year-old. I don't know what actual training he had. There's no record of him being in the Australian Army. But the person inside who did the shooting at the Port Arthur had been very properly trained. You could people saw him moving around and pirouetting when he was shooting.
This was Barry Unsworth as New South Wales Premier in December 1987, 9 years before the Port Arthur killing. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the Inverell Forum stage, Andrew McGregor.
They lost 7 people that day. Our equivalent to the CIA
Thank you, Dennis.
lost
You
7
refer to me as being a
operatives
former
at the
member of the
massacre.
Victoria Police Service.
And there
We
are
actually called it the
30
Victoria
of them that,
Police Pass.
that can be identified.
All right, I'll start. Wendy Skerr and I have come here tonight to pass on what information we have in relation to the Port Arthur massacre. I have used their documents, articles and interviews to gather this information. Neither Wendy nor I will accept any bunkum as the gunman being equal to the world's top anti-terrorist combat shooters for 2 reasons. 1, the shooting inside the Broad Arrow Cafe lasted approximately 5 minutes. 2, there was in excess of 41 shots fired inside the Broad Arrow Cafe. This is from some of the survivors from both inside and outside the cafe. Let's name some of these survivors. Firstly, there is Wendy Skerr, who is with us tonight. Then there is Major Sandra Vanderpeer, who was inside the gift shop area, and in her statement states that the shooting lasted approximately 5 minutes. And she believed that the shooting continued after the gunman reloaded inside the gift shop area. Graham Collier, an ex-RAF fitter, states that he watched the gunman walk around the cafe area shooting people for approximately 4.5 minutes as he lay on the floor nearly drowning in his own blood. Outside, near the information centre, 2 Vietnam veterans, John Godfrey and Peter Stainthorpe, also have contested the 90 seconds to 2 minutes time for the shooting inside the Broad Arrow Cafe. Jackie Lane wrote an article in a police magazine again stating that the shooting went on for about 5 minutes. The time frame for the gunman shooting inside the cafe for 90 seconds to 2 minutes maximum is fabricated. It is an outright lie. And any person peddling that story is pushing a concoction, an outright lie. All the witnesses tell us that the gunman went up to the victims and shot them from fairly close quarters. What the Americans tell me is that anyone with a little bit of proper training in firearms would be able to accomplish this deed. And I accept their advice. What this means is that Martin Bryant would have been able to perform the shooting skills required at the Broad Arrow Cafe with minimum training if he had wished to commit such an atrocity. However, there are many clues that state it was not Martin Bryant inside the cafe on that fatal afternoon. More bunkum is the statement that the gunman killed 12 victims and wounded another 4 in the first 15 seconds. This statement is supposedly supported by the Wilkinson videotape. And this tape recorded the sound of the shots by themselves. Another video camera recorded the shots fired for 25 seconds as being 21 shots, which according to the government prosecutor, Mr. Damien Bugg, QC, leaves only 8 shots to be fired in the next 65 seconds. That is 1 shot every 8.5 seconds. This is not what the witnesses tell us. They all state that the shots continued at about 1 shot every second or 2. Now, one moment. I don't think... Unfortunately, this doesn't show up, but on the CD-ROM you will hear it. The last shot, the 17th shot, is a ricochet. What? In the Wilkinson tape there are 5 shots fired, being shot 7 to 11 within a period of 1.80 seconds. And we are supposed to believe that any person could shoot 5 persons accurately in the head in that time? Thank you. Mind you, as I said, the last shot heard on the Wilkinson videotape is a ricochet. The next piece of bunkum is that 29 shots were fired inside the cafe. Mr. Bugg, QC, continually reinforces this statement, stating it is supported by the ballistics and forensic evidence. But the Tasmania Police ballistics expert, Sergeant Sarah Dutton, states otherwise. In the American Wound Ballistics Review, Dutton states that 30 fired cartridge cases were located inside the Broad Arrow Cafe, not 29. Then again, in another article written by Sergeant Sarah Dutton in the Australian Police Journal, Dutton argues that it is not accurate to count the number of shots fired simply by the means of the fired cartridge cases alone, especially as the crime scenes were not protected until after sunset. And many of the fired cartridge cases had been souvenired, especially in the car park where only 4 cases were located by the police, 2.223 and 2.308 cartridges, with another case being returned by a bus driver. How many shots were fired inside the Broad Arrow Cafe during the massacre? I have calculated a minimum of 41 shots using the court document and witness statements. So why were these deceptions put into place? And why have they been so strongly enforced within Australia? These lies have nothing to do with any federal government implementation plans, but rather a cover-up by the Tasmanian government, which are the owners of the Port Arthur historic site. And it has everything to do with the supposedly locked fire escape door.
The cause of the murders was not a door. The cause of the murders was Martin Bryant firing lethal weapons at people in a very short space of time, a matter of seconds, and murdering 20 people in the Broad Arrow Cafe and 15 elsewhere, and of course wounding many people. I don't believe that door issue is a principal factor in the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Ray Groom. You see, there was a fire exit door within the gift shop area of the Broad Arrow Cafe that was supposedly locked. But just how do you lock a fire exit door? This was the door that prevented many people who were inside the gift shop area from escaping the gunmen. And some were murdered, and others lost their partners and loved ones. It was later conceded that this door was not locked, as stated to the Hobart Supreme Court, but rather it was broken. And the condition of the door was known to police by the 1st of May 1996, when one of the maintenance crew who was painting out the windows and nailing the doors and windows shut discovered that fault with the assistance of one of the forensic police within the building. The next little gem is the Prince sports bag, or should I say 2 Prince sports bags. You see, the gunman was lugging around a very heavy Prince sports bag and a large video camera, which were then found left on a table inside the Broad Arrow Cafe after the massacre. The problem is that several witnesses also saw the gunman carry the print sports bag out of the cafe and put it in the boot of the Volvo. This was even captured on James Velasco's video.
Dumbfounded, and I saw a man walk out of the cafe. We were 50 feet away from him, and he was carrying a rifle. There's somebody going crazy shooting people here. There he is, he's over there. I can't believe it. He walked right by me, not far away from me, just walked out of there as casual as can be.
As Bryant went to the boot of his Volvo,
he's picking up the bag now.
Rifle, James Velasco was doing some shooting of his own. Shooting with his home video.
That's the guy right there.
Velasco's fiancée Cynthia saw Bryant claim another victim.
Royce, our driver, stepped out from behind the bus and walked towards the cafe, towards the front of the coaches to see what was going on. And then
I'm running out of time, so I'm going to cut it off here. No.
Left the cafe at 1:32. He'd been inside less than 2 minutes, yet he killed 20 people.
If you have a look at that area, see all the tables, they're all nice and neat. Everything's nice and clean. And that is supposed to be a building where a massacre has just occurred. Why did the gunman need his video camera? Why did he need 2 print sports bags? Also consider that there were live .308 rounds found on the floor inside the cafe. The only weapon used inside the cafe was the AR-15, which uses .223 ammunition. But in the boot of the Volvo were several hundred .308 rounds. So how did these .308 rounds end up inside the cafe? At this stage, I should also point out 2 other little discrepancies that have occurred within the story of this massacre. The first is that the current affair program showed a person running down the road towards the buses and inferred that this person was the gunman. Nothing could be further from the truth. This person is running, and the gunman never ran. This person is dressed completely differently to the gunman and is carrying blankets from the information centre to the wounded at the buses, and is, in all probability, Mark Kirby, one of the many at the site who assisted so admirably after the massacre. The video is genuine. It is the portrayal of this video that is not.
Still standing there looking at him, he walked right by me, not far away from me, just walked out of there as casual as can be.
But the killing spree continued. 2 minutes later, there were 20 dead and nearly as many wounded.
The other discrepancy is the missing boat. The aerial shot of Port Arthur that has been bandied about, supposedly stating that there's no boat in the area immediately inside the jetty area of Port Arthur, is again misleading. All a person has to do is look at the right of the picture and he or she will see 2 boats. The larger boat being the supposedly missing boat. The video taken by James Velasco was taken at extreme zoom, which is why the boat appears closer than it actually was. And any person who watches cricket, football, or any of the sports on television would be aware of this. Now, that's the end of part 1.